Out. Here we go. And we are live and we are recording. Oh, baby, it's on. Matt Atchison in the house, ladies and gentlemen. So excited to have you, man. Wow.
It's good to
Wow.
be here.
Dude, when I started this whole thing, I was like, eventually I'm going to have Matt Atchison on this podcast. That was like the bar, that was like the goal.
I was the
to have
one
you on
saying
here.
that too. We've been excited, Matt. So it's an honor to have you here, man.
No, I'm grateful that you guys asked me to be here. So we'll have a good time.
Yeah.
Was kind of like trying to rummage through parts of my brain that I haven't been in a little while. And it was fun and it was a little traumatizing. And I was talking with my wife about it, and it's like, yeah, I haven't thought about some of this stuff in a while. So I'm excited. Have you guys talked to anybody that's 38 or older on here yet?
I don't think
how,
so.
How old
A
was
lot of it-
Eliav?
Oh, Eliav, him and I are probably pretty similar in age.
Cool.
Yeah, I feel like he was up there.
Couple
In
senior
his-
citizens.
He was
Yeah,
in the,
right.
he was another third floor person because Elena's what, 32, 33?
Oh yeah.
She's 26. She's 26 if she's listening.
I don't know.
Oh man. Oh well, Matt, as if it's cool, I'm gonna brag about you for a second because you're a humble dude and you wouldn't do it otherwise. And I just want to let people know why I was looking forward to having you on here because we came from Force and I got into books as you were just leaving it. And so you were like the legend, right? You still are the legend, but as a measly first year, I remember you walking into sales school, I was like, this guy looks like he knows what the hell he's talking about. And yeah, you did. And so I need to introduce you because you're a legend, man. So 10 summer book, man, all of them in New England. I know you were the number one rookie. You were on that. I remember I pulled up like a superstar sample book and you had the not sample book, but the superstar book, and you had like a fro going into that.
It was a good one. I had an earring too. My kids asked me because I had a hoop earring too, and they're like, my daughter she probably asked me once a week, Dad, why did you have an earring? And I'm like, well, it was cool.
That was a talking college.
Like a boss. And then you legends, I think it was like over six. I almost have your stats memorized so much I looked up to you in a book field, man. Yeah, great first summer, over 3 summers over 10,000 units, or three summers over 10,000 units. I know you had like 20 people teams, you had 10-person like big teams that were awesome. You had the number one team like twice. That's correct. And you were a DSM which is now a DSL, I think is what it's called now, for 4 years, which is, dude, like just to even
That's
hit
the
DSL
resume.
without any of the other accolades is impressive. But this is like as cream of the crop as it gets in the history of the company, man. So such an honor to have you. Super excited for this conversation. Casual Sunday afternoon. And we're celebrating a book launch. So that's exciting.
Yeah,
So
congratulations,
That's a
Andre.
bigger deal.
it's all good. So, all right, man. So let's just dive in if that's cool. I mean, so walk me through, because you went to Creighton, right? Creighton University in Omaha.
Go Jays.
So who was Matthew? Do you go by Matthew or can I call you Matt? What do you like?
Yeah, no, Matt.
Matt's good. Okay. Who's Matt Atchison sitting down? What is he doing when the first sound or anything to do with Southwestern Advantage pops into your life? What tell us that story and how did you get in?
Yeah.
What time of the year was it? The whole thing.
It was, I got a phone call in my dorm room. My RA had recommended me to Kinsey Engelman, was my student manager, and Kinsey's an all-time boss. She was going into her 3rd summer and had great summers. And I heard about it in a little coffee shop in the basement of McGloin Hall on Creighton
That's where I heard
campus.
about mine.
Yeah. And I remember Yvette tells the story. I don't remember this part, but Yvette used to introduce me. I had the honor of working with Yvette for all my years at Southwestern.
Oh yeah.
Legend.
But I guess I wore a shirt to the info session. I used to make a lot of my own t-shirts,
No
like
way.
with iron-on letters. And it was like, I just had all sorts of things to say. So I just make shirts, like iron them on. And that was one where I just had my name Matt was on it. And I wore it. I had a big old afro and an earring. And
You labeled yourself.
I think I guessed when she showed the books, like how many out of 30 would buy them. I think I'm like 22. But yeah, no, I was pretty much I was pretty much in it right there. A big thing for me was just how normal and cool Kinsey was, and she'd done well, and honestly, she had so much confidence in me so quickly that, yeah, I never really wavered too much going into that.
So you were like, I'm in. And did not wait going into that summer. You're like, I'm going to be in here for a while, or was this like, let's just try
No,
the summer out and see what happens?
yeah, no, it was strictly a one summer thing, and I heard about it. I think I heard about it in March. So to me, that was normal. But all these other, I went to, there was like the mini sales school thing. I had no idea what it was called. It was just a big group of kids that got together that were going to go do this thing in Lincoln. And I went there, and I was brand new into it. And there was like 100 kids, and some of these, they had Gina Ludke give the demo. She was also going to be a first year, and she like knew it word for word, and she was sharp, and I remember everybody being like, she's gonna be the #1 rookie, and I'm just like, yeah, I'll probably be number 2. I'll probably be number 2 right behind her. And
Nice.
Yeah, no, and then we went to sell pretty quick.
Damn. So that was late in the summer, and then when did you like that your parents, were they cool with it, or was it more like you can do whatever you want? Like,
no, my parents were pretty cool. They were like, I think they knew that if my mind was made up to do something, then I was going to do it. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska, Holdridge, and every summer since I was like 11, I detasseled corn. My parents were school teachers. And so that was like our business. The family business was like running a detasseling crew of delinquents
over the summer,
picking tassels. And that's how we made like most of our household income as a family there. So I was not going back to do that again.
Mm-mm.
And so
for anybody listening that's not from Nebraska, what detasseling specifically is you get a group of children and all the way up to adults, like literally.
Yeah, now you have to be 12. Thank goodness. OSHA says you at least need to be 12.
Yeah. And they take you into the middle of the cornfields in the summertime when the corn's like above your head tall, or just like at least up to your chin or something. And you go and you pull out a tassel out of the corn stalk for reasons, just because. And you just literally for hours walk up and down a cornfield in the middle of the heat with like long sleeves on, because you don't want to get cut by the.
You get cut corn. Anyway. It's great work for teaching you like why you want to do something other than cornrows.
Yeah.
Right.
So it sucks. And so that's what he was. Yeah. Because there's going to be people from like California.
Besides selling books door to door, which is its own beast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then walk us through like, okay, so then you get selected, you're about to go, you're competitive. It sounds like you're like, I'm gonna freaking keep up with this chick. What happened? Tell us the story. Say it was cool. Tell us that experience.
It's funny because I'm just now thinking of some other good stories, and I'm like, I'm gonna forget these if I don't. I haven't thought about some of these things in like 20 years, honestly. So I remember showing up in Lincoln to drive like on a Saturday morning. Like I didn't even have time. I took a final, packed my dorm room into my car, drove home, dropped it with my parents, drove back to Lincoln because we were driving out early that morning. And I get in the car, and we're waiting there, and they're like, okay, you guys got to go. And Kinsey was like pumped to get to Nashville. It was like a major goal of hers to be the first one there. And I'm like, why are we in such a big hurry, you know? But so, and then right before we go, the door opens, and they're like, hey, this girl's got to ride with you. And this girl named Catherine or Katie or something gets in my car. She was from Kenya. And she's like, can I ride with you? And I'm like, cool, let's go. So she's riding, and Kinsey just takes off. And like her goal was to get there as fast as we could with the fewest amount of stops. And so I had this girl that I had never met in my life from Kenya. And I didn't have a cell phone. This was pre-cell phone.
What year was this?
2002. I mean, some people had cell phones, but not Matt from Nebraska.
Lincoln had just come from the #1 campus in the world the summer before.
That's right.
Okay, so that's
Oh yeah,
important
you
to
should have
know.
seen, like, the student
Studs.
managers were like Brian Wilson, Yvette,
Legend. Yeah.
Ingrid, Stacia Miller, Nick Henderson. I mean, they're also like 10,000 units. It was
Oh yeah.
ridiculous. But anyway, we're driving there, and Kinsey's like, she's like 85 the whole way, and I can't, if I can't, I can't flag her down to pull over. So I literally twice had to pee in the car while I'm driving. I got a stick shift, and this girl from Kenya is just, I'm like, you got to hold the wheel. And we just met, and I'm peeing in. I had to pee in. You know when you go to the grocery store and they have those little flimsy plastic bags that you put your produce in?
Oh
That's all I
no.
could scrounge up. So I had to pee in
Wow.
like a little apple bag. Um, and the first time I did it, I got on my door of my 1992 Mitsubishi Eclipse. That was such a
Nice.
great car.
That was my first ever car. It was '06 Mitsubishi Eclipse, but those hauled. Those are good mug cars.
So we get to
Yeah.
sales school, and I remember getting into my hotel room, and I'm not going to say this guy's name. I'm sure he's not listening, but I had like a Nazi student manager that I was just rooming with at sales school. Um, Maybe not Nazi. That's a bit extreme, but we get in, and we were there. We were like 2 hours before everybody else. He's like turns the TV around, and I'm like putting on my swim trunks because I'm going down to get in the pool. I'm like, but we're here. We don't have any. There's a welcome meeting in 2 hours. Like, I'm gonna go sit in the hot tub. No, and then anyway, so it turns out that after sales school, like I thought there was a pretty good chance that we're gonna room me with this guy. But I wrote Yvette or Kinsey a letter just saying, hey, I have no idea if you have any control over who we room with, but if there's any chance I could room with Matt Ashoff, I would be forever in debt to you. And I got to live with him my first summer. He's still a dear friend of mine to this day, and he had such a major impact on me that. And years later, Kinsey told me that they were thinking I was going to live with this other guy. So it doesn't hurt to ask for something if you want it, and maybe you might get it.
Oh, I misheard the
Oof.
way you were wording that. I thought you were saying that Matt Ashoff was the book Nazi. So
No.
yeah.
No, so you're saying this lesson number one in life is if you want something, ask for it.
Yeah, might as well at least ask, right?
Worst they could tell you is no.
Yeah.
Dang. Okay, so that was crazy. And then you went and became the number one rookie. So then what were you, was that what you aimed to do? Was like that your goal? I mean, I know you said you were going to be number two, but like at what point did it go from like, oh, let's just try this book thing to where like somewhere in the summer you're like, holy shit, I can actually like do this. Like where tell us about that.
I remember sitting in sales school, and on the last night that Roger Sipe address, I snuck off up top to sit in the balcony at that wherever we were at, like War Memorial or something like that.
Yeah, downtown Nashville. Yeah, up in the
I snuck up there and sat on my own at night to watch it. And I remember sitting up there, and I remember kind of saying to myself, hey, you know what, you got to go for it. You could really maybe be the number one kid, but I don't know that I actually believed it. My goal going into the summer was to make 10 grand. Well, my money goal was to make 10 grand because I think the average at that time was like $7,000. And I'm like, Kinsey made 18 her first summer. I was pretty sure she was sharper than me and more enthusiastic. So I'm like, if I can make 10, then I'll continue to be on this trajectory of at least being above average. Because I had never been really number one at any. I mean, I came from a small town, so like to be valedictorian of 70 kids is good, but it's not like, I was never like a state champion in the races that I ran. I was good at stuff, but I was never really great. So, and then I remember getting out there in the summer, and I remember when I had a pretty fast start, and I had to kind of reset my goals at some point. I remember being like, okay, I already made 10 grand. I need to reset this thing. And so at some point in there, I think I was on the pace setter the first week. Which let me forget to tell you a story about the pace setter for my second summer.
Okay, so I'm gonna put that in the chat. Pace setter.
Yeah. But I was on there. I think I was on there my first summer. I think I was on there maybe every week, but 2 or so. So that started to really help me be like. I was telling my parents like, I think I'm a I could be one of the top kids. That was back in the day when there was 2 divisions though. There was
Yeah.
education
Oh,
and power.
that's right.
And so at the end of the summer, I was number one in power, and Dustin Hillis was number 2, or he was number 1 in education. We had the same first summer. So
Was there an overall number 1 that they recognized that year, or it was just the 2 number
no, they
ones?
always just used to flip the book upside down.
All right, yeah, it is on
Yeah.
there. Because that was that was not the record breaking summer. That was your 3rd summer, which we're gonna get to in a sec.
Yeah, it was his 3rd summer, my 2nd summer, because I didn't sell books my 2nd summer, which we could touch on.
Whoa, let's get into that and then come back. Well, look, you can share as many stories as you want. This is just.
I did
take
want
it,
to
man.
connect with you real quick. I just had to turn off a sound in the other room. I actually sold right next to your first summer turf, my first summer, Matt. And so you were over in, I heard Uxbridge, right? I was right there in Sutton, Massachusetts. My roommate, Miles, knocked on the same doors that you did. And we're like, Matt, with like the big crazy hair. Did you have big crazy hair during the summer?
Oh,
I
man.
might be remembering that.
So at sales school, I showed up and I had my full on, my version of an afro.
Yeah, right.
And I got my picture taken and all that. So like in the pace setter, I had an afro and an earring. And Grant Greeter, my director, he said, like on the last day, he's like, Matt, I think you should go get a haircut because it's like worth $5,000 to you to go get a haircut. And I'm like, all right. So I just whipped over to some little $10 haircut place, got the worst haircut of my life. Right before I went out on the book field, I had to wear a hat to cover it. It was horrible. And I'm just like, I was like, damn it, Grant. Like I was rocking a cool thing and now but yeah, it helped me get indoors, I'm sure, to not look like a pothead.
Yeah.
But you were remembered. The reason why I brought that up is you made an impression with those people of that town, man. I love that area. It's beautiful. There's did you eat at like a local mom and pop diner? Because we actually ate at McDonald's every summer or every day.
We ate at the Blue Moon Diner and we got kicked out for having obscene what do you call those executive exercises in the morning? Yeah.
You got kicked out for doing execs?
For 4 weeks in, we made up all our own, and ours were just like pretty sexually explicit. You know, at
like
7:15 in the morning, and these people were like, and we just did it until they made us change breakfast spots because you couldn't get away with that today.
That's right.
So hang on.
So hang on, so you kicked ass, man. You went so how many was it? It's like over 6,000 units, right? Like I'm just for dollar figures for anybody.
Yeah, I think like 6,700 units. It was like $29,000 was what
at the time. So in today's units, like you take it times 7 now. So you would have made 42 grand if you'd have done that today, which is insane for 3 summers or 3 months. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I sold 9 weeks too. I always like to see. You think I'm humble, but really, then I'll like jab it in there that really I'm better than you think. I'm just kidding.
But that's what. No, man, no. That's worth highlighting, man. That's worth highlighting for sure.
I had the worst finish. I about quit, and it was 9 weeks. And sometimes Dustin Hills will bring that up because I was a freshman, he was a senior. And I remember because he sold a few, it was a little bit more than me. And there was a story at checkout that I shouldn't forget to tell you about that one. But I remember at one point being like, well, yeah, you sold like 13 or 14 weeks. I only sold 9.
Take
was like,
that.
That was my mic drop back then.
Yeah, because then you left, so you didn't come back for another. So what happened there? Tell us about that.
Well, I mean, I didn't like selling books. It was what's that?
Task, man. It's not the easiest pill to swallow. And like the way that you're describing like your pre-summer notion of what this was going to be, I mean, of course you wouldn't want to do, you just wanted to sit on your fat check because you went to Ireland right after that, didn't you?
Yeah, I used the money. I studied abroad and turned it into euros and bought a lot of Guinness for my friends over there that I made. But no, I tell you what, like that first summer, it was really hard. And that was a common thing that I think a lot of times people just assumed that because I was selling a lot of books that I enjoyed it, or that it was easy, and it was neither. You know, it was always, I mean, I knew a lot of people who selling books was a lot easier for them to do than me. I always got homesick. I mean, even in my last time out there, that was always the hardest part for me, was just being away. And I was kind of thinking about this earlier, because in my first summer, I was really coachable, in the sense that I did exactly what they told me to do. I remember I'm kind of a skeptic a bit, and I remember thinking, all right, if I'm going to do this, and they've been doing this for 150 years, then I know that they've got this thing figured out. So I'm going to do exactly what they tell me to do, and I'm not going to take a shortcut. And then if I'm not successful, then I kind of could blame them. But so I took that part of it really, really serious. But I was pretty fiercely independent in terms of my thinking. Like my first summer, I remember I flew my girlfriend out, who's not my wife. Like I remember, like 8 weeks in, I just decided that I was going to fly Chelsea out there. And I booked the ticket and talked to my host family, and they're like, oh yeah, we'd love to meet her. And Ashoff, I'm sure, is like, oh, I don't know if this is. And so then Grant calls, and he's like, hey, what's this I hear about your girlfriend coming out? And I'm like, yeah, you said we run our own business, right? And he's like, so that was a big thing. Him and Yvette were pretty frustrated. And I was just like, I think I started to break up with my second summer about that point in the summer, because I had felt like I'd kind of proven to myself that I could do it. And there were some parts of it that felt more controlling than I wanted to experience. And I was just like, all right, I did it.
I'm done. That's good. Fair enough. That's cool. And then you went to Ireland and drank a lot of Guinness.
Yeah, I part of the reason I went to Ireland, I was going to go in the fall, but I kind of went in the spring, because I knew I wouldn't get back till June. So it was like an easy excuse. I'm like, sorry, Yvette. Like, yeah, you guys are going to be out there, and
you could
actually when I came back from that summer, I got a job at Mackinac Island, Michigan, and I was an omelet chef.
What?
With my best friend at this sweet resort in Mackinac. Yeah, I'd wake up at like 3 a.m. and get my little omelet station prepared, and then make omelets for people, and then I was done every day at like 2 o'clock. And then we just went and like threw the frisbee and ate fudge and read books, and like chased 15-year-old girls that were there with their parents.
A summer of growth.
Wow.
Yeah, and I think I made like $2,300 at the end. But Yvette, she got my P.O. box up there in Mackinac from my parents, and she would send me pace setters. Because there was a kid the next year, some kid named Blake Julian, that was on The Bachelor someday, one of those like years later.
No way.
And he had hit more. And so she was like trying to entice me back, and I'm just like, never. And then I ran out of money.
You're like, oh, that's what it was. And you're like, I gotta go make 40 grand again or whatever.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I got my check at the end of the flipping omelets, and I'm just like, oh, I got to figure something out. No way. But you know what? You know what's cool? Like, I've tried to track. This is one of my favorite stories.
Yes.
So, the rookie position was the omelet chef. You wanted to wait tables because it was like against the restaurant's protocol to give me tips. So one morning, some kid didn't show up, and so they let me wait tables. And so I'm out there, it's breakfast, right? So I'm filling orange juice and coffee and things like that. And I walk past a table, a young couple with a little baby, fill their stuff. And as I'm walking back, I heard them say, selling books. And I'm like,
no way.
What are these a customer from Massachusetts that happened to?
Hold on. Well, if it is, I want to hear the story. Come on.
So at this point, like I had this kind of internal wrestling a little bit with, like, I don't think I'm ever gonna go. Like, to me, I was done, and all those kids were out there selling, and
Oh my god.
but I heard this so they say that. So I said, I'm sorry, did you guys say something about selling books, like Southwestern selling books? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. Like, let me go fill the rest of these orange juices and come back here because I did that last summer. And they're like, really? Well, we both did it. Blah, blah, blah. So I fill them, I go back and I'm sitting with them. And I guess the husband sold like 8 summers and the wife sold like 5 summers. And they're there and they're like, well, actually, we work with a sister company and that's what we're here for. We're here on a trip. And the husband starts to ask me, so they kind of are like, oh yeah, well, where did you sell? And that, you know, they're looking at me waiting tables, and I could tell after a little bit of the conversation that they were thinking that I had not had a good summer, because they were just, you know, like, well, what did you learn? And da 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 da. And it started to get a little farther, and then they're like, well, did you do well? And I'm like, yeah, I did okay. And I was, you know, and then they get that probe a little more, and I told them I was number 1, and the guy just looked at me and he's like,
what do you do?
Dumbfounded. And I'll never forget his look, because that's when I decided to sell books a second summer. He's like, dude, you have got to go back and you've got to learn. You've got a lot more to learn, and you need to learn how to lead people. And that was the first time somebody who didn't have a vested interest, like Yvette or Grant or Roy Lofton, those guys were all trying to get me to go back. And it made sense. In my mind, I was just thinking they were pitching me. But this random dude that didn't care, wasn't even there anymore. And you could just tell that he was deeply convicted that there was something more for me. And I tried to look, though, I would love to find out who those people are. I reached out to a couple of the people that ran sister companies and whatnot, but we couldn't really track down who they were. But I would love to be like, oh yeah, hey, by the way, I went back and sold and I did 10 summers and I'm still with Southwestern, and you know, like, my conversation with you changed my life. But
no way. Well, maybe we could find him through this thing. Maybe eventually this thing gets big enough and we can shout out. If you remember going to an omelet place in Michigan and talking.
Yeah, Mackinac at the Great Straits. Anyway, Mission Point Resort, please find me. I would like to name my next adopted child or dog after you.
No way. That's crazy. So then
better than any letter Yvette could have sent you, for sure.
So at one point in time in that, let's walk through this. So at what point in time through from the second summer that you did, so like that skip summer to going into third summer where you hit, because that's when you hit 10,000 units the first time, right? You grew?
I hit 10,000 in my second summer.
So yeah, so like you went from ice cold cooking omelets to 10,000 unit producer making what would be today $70,000 plus. Like, something happened.
Yeah,
like, I mean, obviously the guy said that.
I guess I was the first B contract. Here's again where I'll brag. I didn't know this till later, but I was like the first B contract to hit 10,000 units for 6 weeks, and then Morrison did it right after that. So I had that feather in my cap for a little bit, and then she took it.
Yeah.
Kudos to her.
Hey, first is good. So
I was my second summer. I recruited. I had one kid come with me, but we sent him home from sales school. He really wasn't ready to go, and I wasn't ready to lead in that capacity. So I was kind of like I was like a mercenary my second summer.
Just come out, sell books, make the money.
Yeah, like I sold in Cooperstown, New York, which was like my second summer was my favorite. My best summer.
Upstate.
Just for me.
Same. I love upstate.
Was so cool, and it was just probably my purest summer of being like a straight up bookman.
Sammy Southwestern. Just
really diving in and figuring it out.
That's awesome. So I mean, that's such a wild thing, and this reminds me a little bit of Chad. I had Chad on the podcast last week, or last time we were on here, and Aleo, and so he gets it all the time. But he was telling me, like, because he was totally off schedule his first summer, hit Sizzler, totally off schedule his second summer, hit Sizzler. But then his third summer, he was like, if I'm gonna do this, I might as well like just do it by the book, pun intended. Went and sold like 7,500 units or something. And I asked him, I was like, what happened in your mind? Like, talk to me about, because that's quite a feat, man. You went from, even first of all, selling 6,000 units is pretty good, right? On your first rookie year. Like, I mean, that's pretty solid. But then like the idea of going from stone cold, like you didn't have like a summer in between where you hit like 8,000, you know what I'm saying? Like where you just like had some trajectory. No, it was like 6,000, went cold, 10,000. Like, was there something in your brain, kind of like that moment where you had in your first summer where you're sitting in the balcony looking at Roger Sipe going, I'm going to do this? Like, what were you aiming for? 10,000? Were you aiming for 15 and then missed? Like, what was that mentality going into that summer?
I think I was scared again. And honestly, I didn't, I mean, I don't know if I have access to that memory of where I was at, but I do remember Grant challenging me, saying something like, hey, nobody's ever hit 10,000 units in their second summer, but why don't you go see what you can do? And my territory was totally different. I mean, it was wild. My first summer I sold in, Massachusetts, where, Nick would know. It was like,
I had the same transition as you. I went to New York right after as well. It's night and day, man.
Oh man. Like I was on my first, I remember calling Yvette from a payphone. You'd think I would have had a cell phone at this point, but apparently not. I called her from a payphone, and I'm just like, I thought she punished me. I remember calling her and saying, okay, like you got me. I know I didn't come back last year. Is this your punishment? Is to stick me out here with like people that do not have teeth and you're expecting me to do well? And I'm like not getting demos in, and she's like, you'll be fine, Matt. You're gonna do good. You figure it out. And
that Yvette voice of just like total calmness, and she just like puts you back into like,
I'm like, all right,
like, yeah, you're right.
She's always right. So, but yeah, it was fun. I loved that summer.
That's great. Is that where we'll get to those pony stories and stuff, but is that where the majority of them come from? Is that like, or do you have like is there like a second summer where you were like, that summer is a close second?
I don't know. And honestly, like I just tried starting this morning to kind of write some notes down, which I should have done a long time ago, because I don't want to lose a lot of these memories. But a lot of them, they're pretty far back in there. So I don't know if I have much distinction between those. I mean, I had basically 4 hardcore summers.
Where you like were just jamming.
And then they became, I was like becoming a DSM. So I got married. So then it was like 8-week, I had 4 full summers and then 2 8-week summers and then 3 weeks. And
I see. So you're kind of like where my brother is now, where he like just hit DSM last year, kid on the way. So it's going to be more like a DSM type transition into than just like hardcore 12 weeks. Just
get your kids out there, help them find places to live. Go, my goal was always to go hit more right away out of the gate into the first few weeks, just to set the belief high and get your kids following you, and then go back into the office and take calls.
Yep.
That's wild. How quickly into that third summer did you, or I guess second summer, 3 summers later or whatever, you know what I mean? Your first 10,000 unit summer, how quickly did you hit more at that point? Were you aiming for it? And how early was that?
Yeah, I don't remember. I think it was probably I was really consistent that summer. So I think it was either my second or third week. I remember calling Brian Wilson, having a slow week my first week. And he's like, brother, that was like 4 days, and you're supposed to just be helping people find places to live, and you'll be fine. So I'm pretty sure it was, I usually was able to get up and going pretty quick.
That's wild. That's so cool. That's crazy, because that would have been like your 10th week or 10th or 11th week full selling books, like total at that point, right? Because you sold 9. Yeah, because you sold 9 and then you hit more like week 11 or 12.
I hit more twice my first summer.
Yeah, I knew that.
You
Come
hit
on,
more your
Andre.
first
You
summer?
say you know everything about this guy? Listen
I
up.
didn't know that. You hit more your first
Yeah,
summer?
I told you I find these ways to tell you great things about myself as we
I
get
did
going.
not know that. That's
No, I think I
bananas,
hit
man.
I hit like 1,200 units, 1,200 and something as a
You were
rookie.
number one in the entire company, weren't you?
Yeah, but it
I
was
wasn't.
Oh,
That week that I
the
was, Brian Wilson,
oh, okay.
who, you know, if you guys would like to track down like the who in my mind the greatest bookman of all time, it would be Brian
really
Wilson.
He's a
interesting.
stud. He's a real man's man.
Oh man,
Okay.
it'd be like him and Ron Alford are like on the pedestal.
Yeah, Ron Alford's a legend as well.
Mhm.
Question for you, Matt. So before we get into what you're up to now, because I want to hear about, I want to hear about, what where life has you now. What, and maybe just in sales in general, what do you think was like the thing that really helped you cook with oil, like that really like helped you get in the zone and turn on? Was it like a certain like routine that you did? Was it like a mentality shift? Or was it did you have like what was the biggest impact for you to be able to go, I need this so I can jam and get in the zone? Or was there anything?
I mean, there's a couple things. One, I really thinking back to being a sales manager and a lot of the training that I did, I would always talk with kids about how to use your goal card properly. And I know that sounds like the most boring thing in the world, but I really would tell people that probably my biggest key to success for me, because here's the deal: when you're out there, the most important thing is that you're your best version of yourself in front of as many people as possible, right?
Okay.
If you do that, then you're
You're
going
gonna
to
have
be
a good
good.
summer.
So the goal card for me helped me break down the elephant into small bites and not get overwhelmed with the fact that I had to do how 30 plus demos and work all those extra hours and all of that stuff. It was a way for me to just live in the moment and to put the faith in the system instead of on. I mean, because I once I started selling, there was a lot of expectation from everybody in my org and everybody in the company that you're going to do well, and so those goal periods, there's not really supposed to be goal period too many that go by where you don't sell stuff, and so I just had to break it down and say, hey, look, I need whatever it was, 6 or 7 demos and 4 or 5 sit downs, and that's what I just chased nonstop. And I just lived in the goal period to try to get my sit downs in, and then once it was done, and it was on to the next one. So that was such a big thing for me, was just being able to find a way to keep my head in the moment. Because I told you I was so homesick, and when I was thinking about home, it didn't help me. So the more that I could just be where I was at and be competitive with myself and keep myself going, a goal card was a big part of it.
Wow. Huge.
And I got being homesick, and like the other piece of it was like, when the book field can be a really like one of the most lonely places you could be, in between houses.
Yeah.
Yep, that's true.
And the faster that I could get in front of moms, I noticed, man, if I'm talking to a mom or dad, and then I'm not thinking about home, and I'm actually really having fun, because I do love, like, who doesn't love? I mean, some people don't, but I love sitting down with people. It was
Yeah.
fun, and it was
That's the highlight
challenge.
of the job, is throwing a party.
Yeah, and trying to figure them out. Like where are they at, and what do I got to do to really get connected with them to see if if they should buy these things or not. And so I just would like try to get to the next door as quick as I could, because I was avoiding loneliness.
That's deep. That's interesting. Wow.
That's deep.
It is, man. Like that's great. Like, the motivation that someone has to just kick ass is just like, I don't want to be alone. So I'm gonna go meet as many cool people as I can. And that led to making
It
80,
reminds me of
70
Bill
grand.
Zimby. I just think about how, hey, Bill, how'd you do so well selling books? Well, man, I had 30 breaks a day. So I just would sit down with the family 30 times a day. And that's my break. And
That's
just kind of how I see it
epic.
too. You know, it's mentality.
That's
It's the
epic.
luckiness of being able to have another conversation, figure it out for sure, and develop those skills, especially in upstate New York. And where else did you sell, Matt, beyond Massachusetts and upstate?
So I sold in Massachusetts, New York, then New Hampshire 3 times in a row, and then Connecticut, New Hampshire. It was always one of those.
New
Yeah.
England states.
New
Damn.
England.
So yeah. So let's talk a little bit about because I want to get to also to these pony stories because I'm just excited for the stuff that you want to share about this. But tell us a little bit about what you're up to now, and if you can, how Southwestern Advantage helped you, with what you're doing now, and help you succeed in your life right now.
Yeah. So I help run Southwestern Investment Group, which is a sister company, as you guys know. And I'm 9 years in right now. So when I left Southwestern, I for a little while I actually committed to kind of 2 other gigs, partially inside of the finance world. One was kind of more insurance based, and one was a little bit into financial planning. Because after being there for that long, there was a big part of me that just kind of wanted to like jet to,
Rip a Band-Aid. Yeah.
I kind of felt like I'd been, you get a lot of praise at Southwestern, how great you are when you're selling books and recruiting people. And so I was kind of like, all right, let me go see if this is real or not. And then I committed to one, then found another one, decommitted, went to that. And then Dan Moore, Dan is such a special person to me and to my wife. I had won the DSM of the year. So I was the only DSM that won it. So it was just me and Chelsea, and Dan and Maria went to some island country and stayed at the Ritz-Carlton with them for a week. And I had told Dan, hey, I'm going to work at this other place. And he was just so cool. And he never asked. At the end, he said something like, Matt, I would love for you to have a conversation with Jeff Dobines. And I know that where you committed to, you'll probably really like that and be successful. But, just if you would just have a conversation with Jeff. And I remember saying, okay, I'll do it for you, but I'm not going to decommit to somebody else. And so Dobines, I flew in for lunch to Nashville, because at first Joni Bickney's had kind of indicated way back when that Southwestern wasn't really hiring if I wasn't going to live in Nashville. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not going to live in Nashville, so I'll look elsewhere. But Dan must have had a conversation with Jeff saying, hey, if you were going to open up an office in Omaha, then you could do it with Matt. And so I had lunch with him, and Dobines didn't try to recruit me at all. He just tried to understand what my options were. And he's like a younger version of Dan Moore. And 30 minutes into the conversation, because he literally wasn't trying to recruit me at all. And he doesn't. That's the thing, is his loyalty to all the advisors that were there. I could just tell, man, if this guy just will go to war for anybody who's with him. And in half an hour, I'm like, this is where I need to be, So,
Wow.
So I started up an Omaha office, and so we got a good little squad of Jeff Casey, Brandon Q, Derek Shapiro, and then we've got a handful of other awesome people that we work with here. And
Legit. That's so cool, man.
Pretty fun.
Congrats. So now what's it's pretty successful branching from, just from being friends with Brandon. Obviously he doesn't share too much, but I do know that he talks very highly of the success of your group. And you guys are jamming, you guys are kick some ass. It's pretty awesome.
What's cool? I I mean, the finance world is really big. It's there's so much of it that is beyond what I even comprehend, but it's our group is really fun. We're all pretty similar in age, like the average age of a financial advisor in America is like 58, white male.
Yeah.
And most of us are in our 30s, a couple in their 40s. Like it's a pretty young group, and
still white men though. Right?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm working on that. We've got. You see how I stopped there? I'm like, yeah, well, ours is like 38-year-old white man, so haha. No, we're working. I'm trying to do my part.
That's awesome.
But,
one's really tall.
What's that?
Your diversity is Brandon's height, right?
Yeah, there we go. Yeah.
That's awesome. You guys kick some ass.
Yeah, it's fun. It's good people. It's and a lot of just the common cloth of coming. Not all our advisors sold books. I would probably guess that maybe 65% of them have.
Wow.
But it's just super helpful when Mark Deering has been probably not probably, just my mentor all the way through and a lot of my training, and he spoke to me in bookman terms all the way through my first several years, and it just clicked because there's a lot of things that are really similar from it. So we still carry that.
Do you guys do execs and get kicked out of breakfast
No
spots?
exec. But if they'd be open-minded.
I'll suggest Leavenworth Cafe if you want to go downtown for that.
Is that still open?
Oh no, they closed recently. It was a big deal. I take that back.
Yeah.
Lisa's Radial on 40th and Cumming.
There we go. That's back in my hood where I lived right by there in college.
Oh yeah.
That's epic. Cool, man. So what would you say were like some of the principles from Southwestern Advantage that you took into to attribute to the success? Because obviously we talked about your recruiting abilities, and obviously that's pretty impressive. They had so many top teams and stuff, but like, what would you say, like, if you had to pick one or two that were like these two really helped me figure this out?
I think a big piece of it is that learning and understanding how to have faith in a system that works takes a lot of pressure off of you. There's so much mental gymnastics that you can do when you're going back and forth about something that's really difficult. And when I learned how to selling books, I learned how to just put my head down and follow success principles and to be productive. And it worked for me, and that gave me a lot of confidence that the fail out rate in Southwestern is pretty high, and the fail out rate in financial advising is pretty high. But if you, in either of those two, if you just do what good people would tell you to do, if you have good people telling you what to do, then you're going to be successful. And so I think a large piece of that was just being able to, the selling books for me was a perfect start, because in a lot of ways selling books is really simple, right? I mean, you have one product or two or three or whatever,
right?
Yeah, and you have the hardest part is getting yourself to go do what you know you need to do. And in the investment world and planning, it's like I was really intimidated to do it, because honestly, when I left, I was 29, and I honestly was nervous about whether or not I thought I could learn a new craft or not. I thought I was too old. Like, I don't think I could learn. I didn't even know what a bond was. And I'm like, oh, I don't even know if I want to learn what a bond is. So why don't I just go do this kind of quick sales thing? But I'm really glad that I didn't. For me, Ralph Brigham was a huge influence that helped me pump the brakes. I was really fortunate. A lot of people, when they leave the book business, they leave like abruptly, or they leave at the end of the summer. And that was really important to me, that I didn't have that type of an ending. And so I talked with Yvette and Grant. Chelsea and I found out we were having our first baby, and the, you know, it was a long process of me kind of breaking up with this job of being a sales manager, because I thought I'd be there forever. I thought maybe someday I'd be fortunate enough to follow in Dan Moore's footsteps or something like that. So it was really difficult for me to break up with that. And once I decided that I was, it was like I had like my best group of kids coming back. I had like all these studs that were going to go full time for the first time, and I had full time a bunch of years, and it was like Joel Cush and Tyler Clay and Elena and Megan Baker, and I'm gonna leave somebody out, and I shouldn't, but I just had a bunch of these kids that were gonna go do it for the first time, and I felt like, man, this is a great way that. So Yvette and Grant said, hey, come recruit, take these kids all the way through a recruiting and training cycle, and then you take them, get them to sales school, and help them launch, and then go your merry way. And so we decided that was going to be the way it was going to work in August. And so I had like a 10, however many months that was, all the way up till May, to really kind of impart as much as I could, and interview too. They were cool. They were like, yeah, as long as, find what, don't be in a hurry to find what your next thing is. But so I'm really grateful that was a lot on Grant and Yvette for kind of, that's not a normal thing, but they were really creative about that, and I'm glad they were.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And it's such a statement to your legacy too, because I mean, the people you mentioned are all people who I think highly of. I mean, Megan Baker was the person that did my info, and she was like the one that, like, the first face of Southwestern, besides Steve Thyden, who invited me to the info. But like, it was like the first, Joel Cush is one of the nicest human beings.
With Phil Zolke.
Yeah, Joel Cush is one of the nicest human beings that you could ever meet. I mean,
he's just like right below Jesus.
Yeah, it's like
legit. Joel.
Joel's like the nicest guy ever.
Yes.
I mean, I couldn't even imagine him yelling. Like, he's just such a kind soul. Elena's a total badass chick. Like, all these people that you were mentioning there, you left that legacy for them, and that's pretty cool. I have to share one story about you that I heard from Elena. When she mentioned that there was her first summer she was following you. It was like a Saturday. She was struggling, and you were like, she didn't know it at the time, but you were like just very close to hitting Mort for the week, and it was like a Saturday afternoon, and there's some lady standing on the driveway, and you were like, hey, just hold on a sec, and you just went out, and she just watched you talk to this lady for like 6 minutes. She bought a CD pack. You get back in the car, you're like, all right, I just hit Mort, let's go get a beer. It was like your last, the next day you like left the book field. That was like your last thing or something, or we were close to it anyway. And yeah, I was just like, remember thinking, hearing that story, like, what the fuck? Like,
I was thinking about that a little bit, because like some stuff that'd be good to get off my chest now that doesn't matter, right? But
please do. It's 10:20 uncensored.
Yeah,
podcast with Matt Atchison. Let's go.
I like part of the reason my second summer was really good for me is I remember just being exhausted and hitting more, like, whatever week it was, the 8th or 9th week, and calling my dad, and he could just tell, like, you get wound up so fucking tight on the book field. Like, I'm still wound up tight from the book field. Like, I'm trying to unwind myself. But my dad,
alcohol, right?
Yeah, he's like, well, why don't you just take a kind of a mental health afternoon off? And I'm like, that's really what it was for me. So I did that a lot. Like, I know I could have sold a lot more books. Once I really got going, I usually just hit kind of my target number. And then I needed, especially as I was once I got into management, like you don't have 5 minutes to yourself when you're not like
Yeah.
running an org. So
man, all summer
I
long.
used to love taking off at like 3 or 4 on a Saturday and just finding a local bar and posting up and having a few beers and being like, I feel good about it, you know?
Yeah.
And
Take care of the old
it's
noggin.
hard. It's hard because then like the schedule thing just kind of messes with you a little bit. So it's kind of some chinks. That's the beginning of the end of in a sense of like my pure schedule or whatnot. But so I always kind of wrestled with that because I would like talk to kids about the importance of them being on a perfect schedule. Yet then as I got older, I wasn't doing it myself. So there's a number of those things I think that kind of didn't sit so great with me about stuff, but
Yeah. I mean, but the thing is, like, when you, to me, the way that makes sense for you is because, you were asking to do something that you've already done. Like, there's a whole student manager creative. I'm not going to ask you to do something I wouldn't be willing to do myself. And that's great. But at the same time, like, your place and who you were at that moment was such a different person than right? You were still the person they wanted to become. And in order to do that, they still had to go have great summers of full 100% work. And so at the end of the day, like, you were past that. It's like Miyagi, he doesn't go paint his fence anymore. He still can, and he would still be a badass at it. But like, that's what he has the kid for. It's your job. It's your turn. It's your time to shine. And you kicked ass at it. I mean, you were awesome, man. That's great.
well, thanks. It's fun to think about.
Yeah. It's a good reminiscing. It's interesting too, the bond that it's created with people. Like, because here's the thing, Matt, like, I think I've talked to you, like, this is probably the longest conversation I think I've had with you in my life. But I've seen you at weddings, and that's the point I'm trying to make. When I see you at weddings, it's like I've known you forever in a way. And and that goes with like Nick Henderson, that goes to any of the people that I knew from my time there. And that's the thing about Southwestern, that even though you can get a lot of really good experience from even other door-to-door companies or just other sales jobs, there is something to be said about that, like, thing. There's like a thing, maybe the Kool-Aid
It's
or
a
whatever.
fraternal nature. I think
Yeah.
Todd McWhirter put it best when I listened to him talk about it in Denver for GRS too. He was a guest speaker, and he talks about how he was like a sig ep or something in college, and he was like drinking, throwing back brews with the best of them. But like whenever he would meet a sig ep just out in the wild and be like, "Oh yeah, same fraternity, yeah, woo, you drank a lot in school, awesome, me too."
Yeah.
But when you come across a bookman or a bookwoman, just like in the wild, right? It's just like you sat on a curb and cried. I like you. Tell me about your experience and unfold for me. It's a totally different like connection. Like I'm in Matt and Chelsea, right? Speaking of some Matt and Chelsea Williams sold books for 8 summers. I hadn't seen her in 6 years, and I'm in her house right now, just about to move out here tomorrow to a new place here in Dallas because this is where I'm at now. But it's incredible, and
It's legit.
It's a big reason why we made this podcast.
Yes.
It's really the reason why we made this podcast is because we were lonely. It was 2020 pandemic, and being able to have a chance to chat with you, Matt. This is what Andres and I have been wanting to do. It's not just you; it's the Lee McCroskeys of the world. Already that we've had Brandon and Eliav, and some other really awesome people. And I could name everybody and give them their recognition, but what's go ahead.
I was gonna say, but that's the thing. Like, even the people, like, you don't have to be like a legend to still have that connection, right? Like,
100%.
Like the people that we've talked to that weren't necessarily like top, 10,000 year producers, like we've had real conversations with them. And that's the thing. The way that this started, I was in Portland visiting Will Metcher, right? This group of guys all sold books. And there was this guy that was not a book member. He was also in sales. And so they were friends with him. And he was like, "Oh, I know what it's like. I can relate." And I'm like, I'm not trying to be mean, but here's the thing, dude, watch this. So like everybody was having conversations individually. And I was like, "Hey, you guys want to hear a pony story?" And the whole table just, yep. And just everybody shuts up and starts listening. And he was like, "Whoa." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's different, man. It's just like, there's like a Kool-Aid that we drink that there's still an aftertaste." And we're like, "Yeah, it still tasted too."
Yeah, it's fried into your DNA.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's in there now.
Practice makes permanent. When we just did dozens and thousands of hours of practice. So Matt, I'm curious, with the over 10,000 hours you clearly put into that sphere, there's some crazy stories in there, right?
Yeah, I
Do
think
you
it's time for
write
some
down
stories.
some stories to remember, or do you have like a list to go from?
I need to make one.
Yeah, right.
Well, while you're making this, or are you gonna make it right now? Is that what you're saying? Or or do you have something prepared?
No, I don't have anything. I've got a couple things in my mind, but you go.
Okay, no, I was gonna say while you're thinking about that, the biggest thing I wanted to make sure we implemented here is that, I mean, I am super thankful that this is happening, bro, because you're doing this late at night on a Sunday, and it's just been it's been a good it's been a thrilling conversation already. I'm glad that this is happening. On a little bit more on that story later that night to finish this up. We go to a brewery. Metro's like, hey, we were at a dive bar. It's like, let's get to the brewery. We go to this brewery. They have plaques around the wall. It's like big old brewery in Portland. Of course, it's delicious beer. And I was like, how do you get your name on a plaque? And it's like, you have to drink 500 of these giant mugs. I'm like, you have to drink 500 of those? It's like an alcoholic's problem. This guy, Jacob Schultz, I think is his name. I have to look up the picture. And when you get your name on a plaque, you get to put a quote in there. And so we're sitting at this table, and Metro like picked out the table, and he's like, hey, check this out. And Jacob's name was on the plaques. And the quote was, I will persist until I succeed. And in my head, I'm like, you know what? Why that's cool? That's cool because if you did not sell books, you're gonna go, huh, cool quote. But anybody who sold books, no matter how old they are, is gonna read that thing. They're gonna read that and go, that is a book guy. Like, there's no doubt, and it's so interesting that like little things like that. We know what more is. We say, I still sometimes say things like HQ, and ponies, and all these like different like things that we named, like drop a bag. I'll still say I dropped a bag in a different sales job, and they're like, what the hell are you talking about? I'm like, I just dropped the bag, just so you know. That was a whole bag. It's little things like that just, I'm glad we're doing this, and I'm glad you're here. So yeah, for sure.
No,
would love to hear.
I listened to you guys with Fido this morning, and I'm just like, oh my God, I miss that guy. I would love to hang out with that dude. And he's talking about Omar, and I'm like, man, there's so many people that like life pivoted, and I mean, I'm still within a sister company and whatnot, but it's like, it just has gone in this direction that it has, but there's so many people that I would love to see and give a hug to. And
right.
So
it means so much to you.
It's really legit.
They just mean so much, those relationships.
They do.
Like,
yeah.
I had one sales school with Omar and Ron, and then they were both gone the next summer. I think Ron was around maybe that second summer of mine, but I look like my life was deeply impacted by their example, and I want to give them a hug too. So I feel, and you were right alongside with them, Matt. So I don't know.
Legends.
Yeah. Let's hear some legendary stories. Do you have any?
I was the kind of pony, the ponies that I wrote down were more so like remembering just crucial life lessons.
Okay.
Perfect.
That weren't necessarily people that I sold. But it was like major moments in my life that.
Yes.
Is that all right?
That's perfect. That's exact. Okay. Yes. Yes, please.
So I'm going to go, I got a few here.
And just so you know, I did put this in the chat so we could remember it for later, but there is something you mentioned about a pace setter second summer story.
Oh, that was a good one. I'll tell it real quick. When I came back, so, one of the things that is a little bit weird is like the celebrity status that kind of gets attached to people that sell a lot of books. And that's not a good thing for me. Like I was never comfortable with that. It always made me really uncomfortable, to be honest with you. In some ways, there were parts of it that I liked, but I recognized it just wasn't good for me. And it would always weird the shit out of my wife. Like we'd go places, and I'd bring her to some of these things, and she was just like, why are these? She's like, I know you. You're okay, but why? Like they think way too highly of you, you know. But one of my first experiences with that, I had a little bit after my first summer, but I kind of ditched out. Like I went to Sizzler, but I took my girlfriend, and I didn't like and try to make a lot of friends, honestly. So when I came back, I was at sales school, going into my second summer, and we were at War Memorial, and these two kids came up walking by me, and they stopped me, and they're these two like I mean, I feel like you can't even say some words these days without getting in trouble. Like, felt like they were these two pothead kids from California that were selling books, and they're like, "No way, you're Matt Atchison," and they're like, "Dude, we were roommates first year, and we cut out your picture from the pace setter every single week
Oh my
at
God.
the breakfast place, and we took it in the urinal, and we pissed on your face every single week. It's you, man. We piss on your face." And then I was just like, "Thank you," or what? Like it was just,
Is that an honoring, or is that like
yeah,
a
I'm
you hit
like,
me? Like,
I'm like,
touch me now?
what just happened? Like these guys been urinating on a picture of me a year ago.
Oh
Whatever.
my God.
But that one stuck out.
Wild.
No, so one of the stories I was going to tell was, and I used to talk about this when I would train rookies, is I talk about kind of my toughest rejection from my
Yeah.
first summer. And I will never forget that I came rolling up to this house, and I parked out. It was kind of a medium-sized driveway, like, you know, in New England, a lot of people have really long driveways. So I probably parked like 50 yards away from the house. And I didn't pull in the driveway because the husband's in the driveway washing, he's spraying on a boat. And so I get out of my car and I'm running up, and I kind of run up to him, and I start my approach, and he's like, "Oh, hey, go knock on my door. My wife does all this stuff. Like, she's a teacher. I don't handle any of this stuff. You know, let me wash my boat." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So I go knock on the door, and she lets me in. She's just like this super, super sweet lady. And so, "Oh yeah, come on in. I'm a teacher. I love books." And so I think I'm walking into this, like, I walked into this really nice woman. And so we're sitting there, and I'm going through my demo, and um, she is not only a teacher, but she like runs a charter school out there, and she was like a major expert on education and all this stuff. And I'm part of the way into my demo, and she kind of puts her hand on my book and taps my book to get me to kind of look up at her, and she's like, "Matt, is it okay if I stop you here for a second?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Well, I just want to let you know that um, now you said you're here from Nebraska," and I'm like, "Yeah, here for the summer, living in somebody's basement," and and she's like, and I don't know, I could tell in more detail, but she basically is like, "Look, she's very concerned for my well-being, and she's
Oh no.
quick to tell me that I'm not going to sell any of these books all summer. Like, I hate to tell you, but you've been fleeced by this company. And I would never, and this is nothing against you, Matt, but I would never buy these books. And I would never recommend that any of the parents of my kids buy these books, because we've got all these other resources and this and this and this. And you're like, you're living in somebody's basement, and do you have parents? Are your parents aware of this?" And all this that she's
Dang.
going into. And she's just so caring and so concerned and so certain that I wasn't going to be able to sell any of those books. And I remember like my clock was ticking pretty quick. Like, okay, I need to get out of here because I don't waste time with non-prospects kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I remember getting out of there pretty quick and running back out the door, and Dad's still washing the boat. And I just get in my car. And I remember getting in my car and just punching my steering wheel and being so pissed. And I remember believing her and thinking, how the hell did I get talked into doing this? Like, she's totally right. Like, nobody's going to buy these things. And how I'm such a fool, like, for being talked into this.
Yeah, duped.
That's exactly, like, I remember I got effing duped. And the crazy thing about that, and why I would share that story with my first years going out, was because that was like my 8th week in my first summer. And I had already sold 6,000 units, and I'd already made a buttload of money. But those are the tough rejections. They're so sneaky that you can have success, you can have all this other stuff, but sometimes it's those ones that kind of catch you out of left field that I remember thinking to myself, there's no way this company is going to be around with the internet. I'm definitely not doing this again next summer.
Which you didn't.
Which I didn't. Yeah, look at me. I was right.
You already made 40 grand, 42 grand, or today.
Yeah, I mean, I was cruising. I was pretty far ahead of number 2, and at that point. And but the crazy thing was, I totally believed it. I thought nobody's gonna buy these things, and then I snap out and like, wait a sec, look at all these names I got on my list. And so that was a pretty powerful one for me, for just helping understand my own emotions and really developing, hopefully, more emotional intelligence to be able to ride through those ups and downs in any sort of job that's production based. That was a pretty big one for me, kind of an anti-pony, but one that huge. I'll never forget.
Well, and that's okay. That's like, I mean, the biggest thing with these stories, and I like that fact that you're giving us like lessons learned, because honestly, it's cool for people who even maybe never sold books to be listening to something like this, who just might need to, you know what I mean? So that's pretty wild. I thought this was gonna be like week 2, and then you went and said, and then I went and sold 6,000 units, came back and said, here's your free books, Tammy, peace, or something. No, it was like week 8 of 9 of your first summer.
Yeah,
you'd made 40 grand at this point. Damn. Wow. Good one.
Messes with your head, doesn't it? You know?
Yeah, it's wild. Jeez.
The other one I wrote down here, I had written a couple, and you guys can cut me off whenever. I'm into now my I'm drinking some scotch so I can roll.
Hold on. If you're drinking scotch, I'm gonna get some scotch, because I'm down to go as long as you can. I mean, we're here. I want to respect your time, so you let me know when we get to the last one. We'll just say, hey, this is the last. This has to be the last one, and then we'll do 10 more minutes of that, and then. But let me go get some scotch.
You got it.
Actually, I can hear you. I'm gonna mute myself, so keep talking because I can hear you.
Looking at a box of alcohol that isn't mine, so I'm just gonna continue the conversation.
Pick it out, you know.
Yeah, that's cool. He would say it's fine, but I'm fine personally.
Okay, so another like really pivotal moment in my career was going into my 4th summer, I think. So my first summer, when I went back as a B contract, I recruited one person. He left from sales school. Then I came back, and I was like, that's the point at which my second summer, I kind of drank the Kool-Aid, and I became kind of less fiercely independent and started doing things more so like the company way, and speaking like a company guy. And I brought my 3rd summer, I brought 10 people, and 8 of them quit. The 2 that stayed were awesome. Keith Hogeem, who's like a dear brother of mine, and Mark Siriaco, another Creighton boy, who I love. And so they both were my 2 roommates, and they had great summers. Everybody else bombed out. But I got a lot of recognition because I sold
Love
my
all
third
that.
summer, like 11,000 something units, and brought 10 people. And back then it was a lot of the recognition, and the pay grid was even like based off of how many people you brought.
Right.
Part of it was how well they did, but part of it was just like, if you brought a lot of people, you could get paid more. And I remember going to GRS 3, which I don't even think they had GRS 3 as I got farther along. But we were out in California, and I'm like really like riding high, and we were walking out of a meeting where I had a teaching part in. Oh, you got some Elijah Craig there.
Yes, sir.
There we go. Get down.
Oh, baby.
And Chris Fugman, I don't know if you guys remember Chris, but he ran OWICE, and
Yep.
he was a phenomenal sales manager. He had a huge organization. In my years at Southwestern, I think he was one of the most gifted sales managers, if not. It's like Chris Adams, Chris Fugman were like, and he's a Bears fan, which he's taken me to a couple Bears games back in the day. But we were walking out of the meeting, and I didn't know him too well, and he's like, he kind of pulls up next to me, and he's like, "Yeah, Matt, good job teaching on that," and da 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 da. And everybody's patting my ego, and we're walking down the hallway, and he's like, "So have you figured out what you messed up on from last summer with the guys that you recruited?" And I kind of laughed, because in my mind, the 8 guys quit because they weren't tough enough. It was their fault.
Not you.
Yeah. And I kind of was like, and then he's like, "No, seriously, have you figured out what you did wrong and what you suck at?" And I'm like, oof. And I'll never forget, like, that was the moment where I realized how important it was, the responsibility that I had to emotionally prepare people for coming out to the book field. And that was largely on my shoulders. And that was just a critical moment in my career, because I kind of went from being the kid who could sell a lot, and I was just like, "Hey, come do this job, make a lot of money, follow me," kind of thing, to like, "Oh, okay, hey, I really need to dig in and talk to these kids about what you're going to feel when you're out there, and how are you going to get through that, and why is that important," and just that emotional prep. So that was a big moment in my life, which has majorly stayed with me. I mean, I coach financial advisors now, and really I feel like that's a huge part of my gig, is just emotionally helping these men and women who aren't kids anymore. I mean, but helping them through, like, emotionally through all of these steps of building their business and so forth now. So that was a big one. The other one I was going to share with you guys, I'm probably rolling in there too much.
Let's go.
You got it. Yeah, keep cranking.
I was going to share with you
I'm attending Matt Atchison church right now for salespeople. So I'm like, let's go ahead, bro.
You're making him feel weird, Andres.
Share with you one of my my most humiliating experience.
Yes.
As a leader that I've ever had. So at one of those GRSs, after like my 4th or 5th summer or something like that, it was like one of the downfalls is that you can get really wrapped up in your status inside the book business. It's dangerous. And I remember sitting with Yvette, and she had mentioned to me, she's like, "Hey, the org wants to have a conversation with you." And so I'm like, "Okay, cool." I think that, yeah, it was probably like my 4th or 5th summer, and I was going to be like a co-OL with Matt Ashoff. And the org, it was like Rachel Keister and Matt Ashoff and Tina Ludke and Brian Smith, and a group of these guys kind of sat me down above the escalator at the Renaissance Hotel, and just like let me have it for all of the shit that I was doing that was hurt, like just not being self-conscious about the other people in the org. And they just went around and around and around about like, I would, somebody would teach a part. And because I always thought that I knew what else to add, I'd always like jump in and finish and add what stuff that I thought was really important on the end of it. And I thought that was important in those moments because I'm like, yeah, well, we're trying to get this information to them. So let's tell them this. Yeah, at the same time, I'm just undercutting the legs of all the other student managers in the group. And it was painful for them to work with me. And it was like 2 hours probably. And I just sat there, and half hour into, I'm just bawling. Like they just kept going.
2 hours
going.
ripping
Oh
into
yeah.
you. Wow.
And it was incredibly painful. But it was humongous for me to have. I mean, you have to know that stuff. You have to be able to get back feedback from people that you love. And like Matt Ashoff can give me feedback for the rest of my life because I'll take it. Like if he has something he wants to tell me about me, then I probably need to hear it. It was hard because there were some of the kids in that group that were like younger and just felt like they were piling it on a little bit. But that was easily one of the most important instances that just helped me boost my self-awareness a little bit more as a leader and help me begin to understand like what it meant to run an organization together with other leaders.
Jeez. Wow.
It was
Cool.
it was,
I'm glad
yeah.
you did that then.
Oh man, me too,
Yeah.
just bawling in front of them, and
like and it takes a ton of courage on their end too to do that, because like it reminds me of the feeling that I kind of got so my brother obviously sold books after, and I recruited him, but the thing about Danny that was crazy was he was still in high school during his first summer, and he had graduated a year early. So like he literally was telling to kids older. I've told this before, but the point I'm trying to say is I'm the older brother, always been protective. You guys will either already know or will know soon, hopefully, about my life story. And so I always was like trying to protect him, but I had just gone through like the hardest. I hated selling books just from the standpoint of like the actual job. I loved what I did for me. Like you were saying, Matt, like I just didn't like it either. So I dropped him off at his first house because he was a walker that first week. And it's kind of hard. You're about to let someone who you care about get ripped apart, and they had to have a lot of courage to have told you that as well. So that just speaks to their level of leadership and like sometimes you just have to have the tough ones, and it's for the sake of the organization. So that's them showing how much they care about the tribe over you, even though you're a valuable player, but then also just how much they care about you for the future of not just you in Southwestern, but like for your life. Like they knew that this was going to turn you into this, this version of Matt.
I think about that a lot because
awesome.
Yvette knew it was going to happen, and she wasn't there. Like
she probably encouraged it.
She probably did, and that's a really good leader. Yvette and I mean, we're really, really close. I mean, I would consider her to be one of my closest friends. And, I think that was a really wise, just wise guidance from her to them and how to handle it too. Cause I'm definitely not the easiest guy to give feedback to. I'm like horrible, just ask my wife. But yeah, I mean, there's a handful of those types of things along the way that, like, when I really think back, there are so many great things that happen in the book business if you really dive in and you work at it and you're there for a while and it's a big part of your life, because it's not normal, and you're not going to get that kind of, you're not going to have those types of deep instances probably inside of most jobs. Chelsea and I went on a run this morning. We were kind of talking about that, where and part of me, after being out of the book business for a long enough period of time, like I've thought a lot about it, and I'm really, really proud of my time there. But I'm also like uh, aware that it wasn't perfect, and the program wasn't perfect. It was like 90% good, and there's like 10% bullshit that comes along with it. But there's kind of a certain percentage of crap that comes along with everything. But it's just that because the book business is it's so intense, and it's happening at such a formative period. Oftentimes it's people's really their first job community, and there's a lot riding on it, and there's a ton of pressure. And so some stuff kind of gets fucked up along the way of trying to do the right things.
Kids leading kids in a way.
What's that?
In a way, it's kids leading kids, 19, 20-year-olds leading other 19-year-olds for their first summer. I've had to train people that were older than me because I wasn't done with college, but they just finished their senior year and they were first year. It's weird. It's a dynamic unlike any other.
I remember having a conversation with one of my guys on like a club dance floor on Sizzler, and he was one of my roommates one summer, and he sold like 3,500 units as a rookie, and he had a great summer. But he was drunk, and we're out there dancing, and he was a really physical dude, and like, so he's like starts kind of pushing me around out there, and then he just laid into me on the dance floor, like how you didn't listen enough to me, and you didn't, and I was like, whoa. And he gave me all this. It was, it was authentic because it was coming from deep down. He had to have alcohol in his system to be able to tell me that stuff. But that was a powerful moment, because I'm like, look, dude, we're here celebrating. We're the number one team. You had a great summer. I would, in my mind, I'm like, I let you be my roommate, dude. I picked you to be my roommate. But because that was like when I was a sales manager, he felt like I spent the least amount of time with him and his other roommate. And he's probably right, because they were both older guys and whatnot. But I just remember at that point even thinking, I was like 25, and I'm just like, a little bit, I'm like, dude, you got to give me a little bit of grace. I don't know what the fuck I'm doing either. A little bit. I'm like a little bit older than you, but come on, man.
It's kind of the same feeling you get when you, like, for example, this year, actually right now, I'm the age that my dad was when he had me, almost exactly. And I'm sitting here like, dude, if I had a kid right now, like, no fucking way, sir. Like, I'm not at that stage yet. You are, Matt. You're in the third floor. 30s, third floor, baby. You're sitting there pretty. But Danny is having a kid. He's 3 years younger than me, and I'm like, I wouldn't switch places with you, dude. I do not want a kid right now. And I'm thinking, like, then you start realizing he didn't know what the fuck he was doing either. Like, he was just doing his best with, and so then that's the same feeling when you become a manager and you start kind of becoming an OL and stuff. You're like, oh man, I'm just making it up as I go along, and let's hope for the best.
To think about it from an organizational perspective, you're doing as a young kid, right? Because I'm hanging out with a coworker who's 44, and he reminds me all the time, I'm such a kid. I'm 27, and there's all these generational gaps, him having way different habits and, ways of understanding the world and communication styles. But the thing that Southwestern does, and this is why I bled for it and why we all did it, is it takes like 3 years of a career and, in any sales job, life insurance, real estate, whatever you want to go do for 3 years, and puts it into 3 months. And, it's in 3 years, if you're doing sales, it's like a long emotional roller coaster, and you have your down periods and your up periods. And with books, it's just an intense roller coaster, right? And people who stay on the ride by the end of it have seen some things.
He dropped his phone. That's true, man. That's true, man. For sure. Matt, we gotta keep hearing some pony stories here. It looks like you have written down some more stuff here.
It's like I wrote things down that just stuck with me. And honestly, I don't have very many that are actually ponies of like selling people.
Whoa.
But a
Wow.
lot of them, I really can't think of. I mean, I can think of some. If I start drinking a bunch, I'll tell you a little bit about. I better not. Like, if I ever want to run for office someday, then I got to be careful. Let me hit a couple things that were like big my first summer.
Oh, I
In
thought you
not
were I thought you were out of things to write about. So if you still have more stuff that you wrote down, please.
Is that
That's
okay? All
oh
right.
yeah. No, I thought you because you said you had three things, and so that was the third one. I'm like, oh, he's
Yeah, I found a couple more on here.
oh
One,
yes. I would
okay, so
rather have
this one,
that. I would
and
rather
I
have
don't want
that.
these to
Yeah.
sound negative, so that's what I got to be a little. I want to be careful.
We're taking
Like,
lessons.
This is life lessons, man. It's all good. You learned
yeah.
something.
So one thing I think that Southwestern needed to do a better job of was just the whole transparency around costs and things like that. Like I guarantee you, if you talk to kids, most everybody had an experience where they felt like their check at the end of the summer was not quite what they thought, and
Yes.
I think that's an area where they should lean into that, and maybe they do now. But when I was there, they didn't, and it was just kind of like, oh well, that's just this. Like don't worry about it. You're fine. You did well. You still made good money, and we just glossed over a lot of that stuff.
Right.
That at the end of my first, like the nail in the coffin for me not coming back after my first summer. So I checked out early and I came in, and my dad had flown up to help me deliver books because I needed a rental car to get a bigger car that could fit all the books. So he came and we rented a hotel room, and he like went and helped me deliver for, I had like 2 weeks of deliveries.
Loss. That's so badass.
And so we get down to Nashville, and I remember walking in, and like Yvette and Roy Lofton and like just the greeting that they gave me, it was awesome, you know. And I was exhausted at the end. And
Yeah.
I walk up, they're kind of like, okay, so here's how this checkout process is going to work. You're going to go up to the third floor and you'll start, you know. So I walk up there with my dad, and you remember those counters that they had in there?
Yep.
Um, and I walk up in there, and this guy comes running up to me, and it was Roger Smith. And I really didn't know Roger at that time, but he was the sales manager. He was Dustin Hillis's sales manager. And so Roger comes running up, and he's like, "You're Matt Atchison?" Okay. He's in my face. My dad's right behind me, and Roy's there. And he's like, "How many units did you do?" And I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "How many units? What did you do? What did you do? What did you do?" And he's like in my face. And then I told him, and he's like, he goes, "Yeah!" And he screams in my face. And he's like, "I think my guy's gonna beat you." And he just walked off. And that was Dustin's sales manager. And I like Roger. As I got to know him, I became a sales manager. I actually became really friendly with him. And I don't want that story to reflect poorly, because
Sure.
I love him when I got to know him. But that at that time was like the biggest fuck you somebody could have given me, because I didn't care.
Right.
I'm just like, yeah, that's why I'm not coming back to this shithole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I start going through and checking out. And I remember you get that sheet at the end that kind of says, like, here's what your records say that we should owe you, you should get paid, and here's our records. And
Right.
the numbers were $432.50 off. Like, I was saying that they owed me $432.50 more than they were saying that they owed me. And everybody up there, including Roy, was just like, "Don't worry about it. Like, look, you're still getting a big, huge check, and it's what's $400 on." And I'm like, "Well, wait a sec. Like, let's look at this. Like, that's exactly the price of like a VL 1 through 5. That's weird that it's off by that much, because that's exactly the price of a 5 book set." And they kept this, no, let's just do this. Let's get to this check, and then we can go out to eat. And I dug in and I'm like, no, like, let's go find this. Well, we dug it out and it turns out they'd keyed one of the credit cards to some other kid's account. And indeed it was mine. And I remember that feeling of being like that in that moment. I know that Southwestern wasn't trying to steal from me, but it felt like that, right? Like it felt like, why are you, and it just left that bad taste. So I think of those small things that Southwestern they could kind of got past that they shouldn't. They should own those things and have a high degree of transparency around that stuff. And it would have helped. I knew a lot of kids that just left with not the greatest taste in their mouth after doing something phenomenal, after doing something incredible, that if they ended up, I mean, a lot of people, I just felt so bad for some of my friends that maybe didn't have their best fifth summer. And then that was it. That was in their mouth. And I'm just like, man, how can we, and I was part of that too. I was, as a sales manager, that was a hard position to be in, where I felt like some kids were leaving without like the just reward of the confidence and like the encouragement that they deserved after putting so much into it. So hopefully they're better at that now.
Or so I can actually speak to that a little bit, because I stay plugged in because of my brother. And I was actually having a little bit of the conversation with Chad last time, but it was a good conversation. Basically, it's better. It's better. My experience similar to that, and maybe because you were a DSM right as I was experiencing this, so this could be like a good like how it felt on this end. I had a decent good first summer, and then I had a not as good second, and then two bad third and fourth. Like that's a long story. Time for another time. But I remember so I witnessed how to sell books and how to not sell books. And I remember thinking that from our end, it just felt like if I leave, nobody's ever going to talk to me again. And the pressure's on. We preach this buying atmosphere of like, oh, you can buy if you want to, if not, it's totally cool. And you actually have to mean that when you're talking, like that was like the most efficient way to get people to buy, because if you meant that. But it didn't feel like that was translated into when they were talking to you about selling books, because there were some people that shouldn't have come back that
Amen.
did.
Yep.
And on the other hand, equally, probably even more so, there's people that didn't want to come back but should have. The DSM did their job, got him back in, and that person grew. Right, like Chad, who had the off schedule, Sizzler barely, and then 7,500 units because some DSM didn't give up on him, right? And had that not happened, right? So there's like it's a thin line. It's a thin line, right? Also, like for example, I know my brother makes money from this, right? It's a for-profit business, and so like his entire like livelihood is tied around 18 to 22-year-old kids selling books and websites door to door. That's scary. It's you're like as many as them that you can have come back. The from that standpoint also is important. Also from the standpoint of like, hey, I believe in these kids, and you're trying to help them be the best version of themselves, and it's hard to discern if you should keep pushing or not. And that's the toughest thing I think about being a decent. I was never one, but obviously like
it's a super hard job, and that's it. That's exactly it. Like I was talking to my wife, I'm like, it's the whole thing, my whole experience is like 90+% joyous and really awesome. And then that other piece, but it's important to own that piece, that smaller piece, because for a long time, like I couldn't in that, it didn't feel like it. I probably could have been found a way to do it, but I just think that would have been more helpful for me along the way and I guess when I think back, I hope that the people that I worked with, I hope that they, I worked with a lot of kids that I keep in touch with some, but not most of them, so you just hope that a lot of the people that you worked with know that you really did care about them.
Right.
And I think that's the case. Hope it is,
Yeah. And I mean, it's just like anything else. So, like you can't, some will, some won't. So what? I mean, it's the same. Yeah. It translates equally, right? Like some kids are going to go sell books, and no matter what, they were gonna have that attitude and they were gonna have that reaction to that thing that happened, right? Like, and yeah, you can't.
I have one like guy that he was one of my roommates in, I won't say exactly because I don't want to out him, but he was a kid who I poured so much into, and he quit about 6 weeks in, but he still to this day messages me and talks about how grateful he is for selling books. And that's an area that I did grow to really understand that more as in my latter years, where the success for a lot of these people over the long run, many people could find success in failure. And that can be a really good thing, is that you can go out and some kids will quit. And you know what? We have no idea. They're not listening to this podcast, but think how many people, went out, it wasn't their thing. They learned a shitload about themselves. They learned like what their maybe some weaknesses, and then came away with, wow, this was a powerful experience. That was another one of my hopes, really, is that a lot of those people that I worked with that did quit, I just hoped, because that's the part, like some of them, most of them, you like don't really talk to ever again, because they don't, I'd always try to meet back up with them on campus and like thank them and try to impart as much confidence as I could, because I knew that the weight of failure could be really big on them and they didn't deserve that. But I do hope that there's, tens of thousands of unsuccessful book kids out there that really truthfully will look back at that and say, man, I'm really glad I did that.
Right. And I know I know for a fact there are, because you run into them. You like, oh yeah, I did that thing. I didn't do very good. I quit day 2. But honestly, like, it was the first time I really faced my fears, or like whatever. And you're like, cool, good for you, man. Yeah.
Thanks. Good. For sure. I had to send one of my first years home, my 4th summer rather. And I never had people quit that I worked with, because I just refused to give up on people. And I want them to get what I got out of it. And she just didn't sell a book in 3 weeks. I even drove to her turf 4 hours away just to like sprint door by door by door and just really show how to do it. And it just didn't pan out. But I saw her on like St. Patty's Day the next year after that summer, where I was like, hey, you didn't sell anything, go home, it's okay, like just take care of yourself. And it's exactly what she told me, is she learned how to take care of herself because of the wake-up call that face to the face plant gave her. It doesn't feel good to fail at something like that, because you want to believe in yourself, you want to know that you can achieve a lot. But it also is a reminder that, to people who have made it through the book experience, that it's not everything. It's a really thing. It's a huge thing. And that's why it's not for everybody, right? But I think you can have some solace, Matt, knowing that people have figured some stuff out, even in the course of the unsavoriness of it, of quitting or whatever it might be.
Yeah. For sure.
And you've had conversations with people who quit. I know that. So anyway, go ahead. Andres, did you have a question?
I mean, because I feel like this would be a good place to close it up here. But I do want to say, Matt, this is so great, man. I do appreciate you taking the time out of a Sunday afternoon. Yeah, man, this is like a good one. Every episode is really, really good in its own way. But there's been some that, for me personally, I'm like, these 2 hours were definitely worth it for me.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
I mean, they've all been worth it. I don't want to like minimize any of the other episodes. I'm just saying, like, there's some that like I took more away from because it was a different kind of conversation, and that's good. And so I want to say thank you so much, because this is cool, and it's good to relate to someone that, like, people. It's good to see that there's like, you see these people who are amazing at their job. Your Dustin Hillis, your Ralph, and they're just as human as every other person. And so it's like to hear that side of like vulnerability, because it's cool, man. And it's nice that you did it, and I appreciate you for being here. So
well, thanks for having me on. It's fun that you guys are doing this. I think it's really cool. And I'm sure that I need to go. I need to start just putting this. I have like a little 30-minute commute to and from work that now that I know you guys got these,
Start
Yeah.
listening a little
I'm
bit.
gonna go
Yeah.
check them out.
Thanks,
Yeah.
man.
If you want to
if you want to do
share
us
the
a
episode,
favor, yes, share
What's
share
that?
us and
Yeah,
get
you
some
bet.
other of your favorite mentors and friends from the book business to consider joining us on an episode. They can always reach out on
Yeah, I got a
Facebook.
few people in mind. I'll let you know that would
Yeah.
have some great stories.
Heck
I've
yeah.
got some buddies that, man, they remember all their. I don't know. I for some reason I have trouble remembering who I sold to, but
no, it's fine. Like the thing is, some episodes have been like really funny stories or really cool like memories, and then some of them have been like this, where it's just like anybody listen to this, even if they don't really know what some of these terms and
Yeah.
stuff are that didn't sell books, it could still get something out of this and enjoy, and so that's it's a good variety, so that's good. I was gonna say, yeah, if you one last thing I needed to shout out before we have any announcements to think about next episodes and close it up is big shout out to Kevin Flavin for he was the first person to donate to the Ponytails podcast, and we were able to acquire this brilliant microphone for podcasting thanks to that. So I just wanted to shout him out and say thank you. That's awesome to we're just doing this for fun, so there's no monetary gain to be made, at least as of right now. Maybe in the future if this goes well, but for now, yeah, huge shout out to Kevin. So Nick, who do we have next up? And
yeah, so we got Sydney Ann Dove and Renee Dodson, who sold books together. Renee, or I think it was Sydney Ann's first summer, and Renee was the manager roommate. So they're going to have some fun, dynamic stories to bounce and remember off of one another. That's this Thursday at 7 p.m. Central Time. And then on, I think it's 1 p.m. on Sunday. So in a week, we've got Dylan Barr. So Sydney Ann and Renee were Dynasty Book girls, from Texas, Alabama, Georgia Tech and Alabama. And then Dylan was in the foundation, or he was in Chris Adams' half of the company.
Aaron Schaefer and those guys.
Yeah, Michigan kid there. So we're excited. We're actually getting a rhythm in our own lives. Andre just finished his book. I just settled into a new job.
I did.
Yeah. Good job, man.
Hey, we got #1 new release in one of the categories on Amazon today.
Get it, bro. Feel that momentum, ride the wave.
Go get a copy. Here. Leave me a review. Sorry for the shameless plug.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, we're gonna be settling into a good rhythm. We're gonna be getting Thursday evening and Sunday any time of the day that we can make things work with people. We'd love it if we can really get the full live audience going and really getting people engaged in this, because we're dedicated to it. We just love the idea of like growing the experience that the audience can have, and making sure that people like Matt, you can come back anytime you want, bring anybody else, make it a whole panel of people, and really bounce off one another.
That's where you get some fun stories, getting some people to sell together. That'd be cool.
Exactly. So it's nothing but good stuff ahead. And Matt, best wishes to you and everything that you got going on and your family and life. So grateful for everything, and let's stay in touch. We'll
you got it.
I'm coming to Omaha for that beer for this fucking story. I gotta listen to the rest of this.
You got it.
I'm a man of my word. I'm coming this March. You better watch your ass. So, all right. Cheers to you boys. Take her easy. We'll sign us out. Peace out, guys.
Later.